Hello and welcome to the Real Deal of Hollywood. I'm your host, Jesse Zoe. We continue exploring and looking for real people who are the real deal. Today, I'm pleased to introduce to you our very special guest, attorney to law, worker of the court, Mr. Victor Lawc. Hello,
Hi.
Mr. Victor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. I'm glad to be here.
Mr. Victor, what inspired you to take on this path, study law, and work for the court?
Well, originally, my father, when he became a U.S. citizen, he could have just picked a tick on the box, and I would have become a citizen at that time, too. He decided that he wanted me to decide when I became an adult, whether I should become a citizen of the United States. So at the age of 19, I decided, yes, I did want to become a U.S. citizen. So I did all my own paperwork to become a U.S. citizen. And that's how I started working in the law, about 14 years before I became an attorney. So I just followed that path and went to law school at Loyola, where what they did there was inspired me to try to help more people. Originally, I went to legal aid to help the indigent, and I was able to basically go to court and actually fight for clients. If I had gone into the private sector, most likely I would have been working with papers for the next 10 years before I saw the inside of a courtroom. So that's how I got there. I still have an emphasis on immigration, but right now I'm also doing a lot of car accident cases because there's plenty of business in that as well. And I also learned how to do criminal law during this time. And so those three things right now is what I'm doing. Of course, I've also had to do plenty of other cases just learning for the last 22 years. So basically, I've handled just about every type of case, with the exception of some workman's comp, which I really don't want to do that.
At what stage of life do you feel you wanted to become a lawyer?
That was right after I had a laboratory accident up in UC Santa Barbara. Someone left some radioactives sitting around. I walked in, got irradiated, and spent the next 30 minutes getting scrubbed down. At that point, I decided maybe I should go back to what I did before. And I decided that laboratory work wasn't right for me. And I looked and saw what profession where I can get away with not being around radioactives. And lawyers can stay away from radiation if they want to. And I already had some practice with it. I picked that one, and 3 years later I graduated from law school.
Do you find out any other job outside of lawyer?
Well, originally I was going to be a research molecular biologist.
Yeah.
So that would have also qualified me to do patents. However, I discovered that I have no interest in it because part of that was you had to study for another bar exam called a patent bar. And I drove my car off the road twice while listening to the tapes on how to take that test.
Yeah.
And I took the classes. It bored me so much that it almost killed me. So that was a good sign for me not to do that.
What types of sphere of law do you practice?
Right now, I'm mostly doing immigration, car accidents, and criminal law.
Yeah.
I do a little bit of family law, and that's where I started out as. But they have the lowest lifespan for attorneys. You're more likely to get shot in a case with family law than anything else. In fact, my first boss had his client shot right in front of him outside of Compton. So at that point, it determined I'll learn it, not going to be my focus.
Oh, so it will be dangerous?
It is the most dangerous part of the law.
Yeah.
It's much more dangerous than criminal law. the criminals don't really take it that personally. You just do your job right, and they're okay. Now, family law, you do a fantastic job. They can still become enraged because it didn't go exactly the way they wanted it, and that's why I try to stay away from too many of those.
Have you met in some dangerous situation while you doing the family law?
Well, the first case I had, it was with the wife of a SWAT officer. And pretty much 3 months into the case, he called me up and threatened to shoot me. So at that point, I just told him that, number one, if you shoot me, you basically are going to lose everything. And I talked him down. And this really wasn't worth reporting, because if I did, he would have been fired. My client wouldn't have got any spousal support or child support, because that would have meant he had been jobless at the time.
Yeah.
So he thanked me after the divorce. So, yeah, it can get dangerous.
What was your experience working at the court?
Oh, working at the court. I actually volunteered to work within the courts too. And for that I was doing help with domestic violence, to get restraining orders against people who are basically threatening or beating up their spouses or children. And did that for a few years. We went through, sometimes we would handle about 10 cases a day. And just get them ready for court. And that got a little frustrating at times, because we would get, people would come back like 3 or 4 times. But most of the time, if they got to 3 to 4 times, it eventually stuck, where they finally left the guy. But for something like that, you really need you need a lot of patience for that.
What challenges did you face while working there?
Well, most of the challenges occurred after leaving the court, and I still work in the court when I do my cases, but I don't work for the court anymore. And that was in 2008. Basically the entire U.S. economy collapsed for a while.
Yeah.
And at that time, what I was doing was debt negotiations and bankruptcies. And we were actually in 44 states at that time. So the business was going well. I had like 60 attorneys in our firm. But as soon as the economy collapsed, we started getting lots of ads saying that we'll solve all your problems for like $1,000. They turned out to be frauds, and most of them left the country after getting the money. But in the meantime, they took all the money that we could have used to help them. So we had to shut down almost every satellite. And after that, I was down to 2 offices, and we've been that way for basically since 2008. And that part of the business completely dried up. And I guess the next problem we had was COVID-19.
Yeah.
And basically it lost almost every one of my employees, either to getting sick, their family getting sick, or they're just so scared they never came back. So I'm down to about 3 employees right now.
Yeah.
And I have to staff 2 offices with 3 employees. So everybody is basically working like crazy to get through. I'm paying them a lot more, because if you've already seen, there's a bunch of McDonald's saying that we'll pay you $15, $18 an hour. So I need more highly skilled labor. So I got to pay that.
Yeah.
And so that's been a challenge. And as soon as they get skilled enough, you better start paying them a lot more, or they leave for the next employee, who also needs those employees as well. So that's been the challenge right now.
Why did you decide to open your own company?
When I was working for legal aid, there were types of cases they were not allowed to take. And normally you're not allowed to take any side cases. I went to the board and they authorized me to take those cases. So when I did, I started getting more and more clients through there. And one day legal aid told me, "You're not showing up that much, so we're just going to fire you because you have too much business." So that's how I got my own office.
So they don't like you getting too much business?
Well, they told me that I wasn't showing up. So it was actually a pretty good severance. And they immediately put me on their list of people to call for all those cases that they couldn't take. And still have friends there too, to this day.
How did you overcome the 2020 pandemic?
Mostly, almost everybody started working remotely, and including myself. Even though technically we're in a class of job where we're actually allowed to break curfew, basically at will. So the only person that was in the office most of 2020 was me. I just got out there by myself, and for anybody who was still working, we just did everything remotely. But yeah, we did take a heavy hit, because basically, if you're not driving, you're not getting into car crashes, which is good for them, and good for the hospitals. They don't need any more people in there. But that did take away a lot of business, and criminals weren't going out to commit crimes as well. So, also good you're not going out and committing crimes, but that also cut down on business. So, the only thing that really didn't go away was the immigration. People still wanted to come here, despite whatever was happening, even when Trump was trying to get rid of everybody. In fact, that might have helped, because that actually got more people that were in danger of getting deported, and they came to me. That meant a lot more work. So that's mostly how I got out of it, was that the immigration took the place of the other two types of law that I did. And so that's how we made it through 2020.
Did you make some ad or social media or website to make other people known of your business?
The only thing we had was a magazine in Spanish that we got because we helped the owner of the magazine in a lawsuit. And she just gave us a bunch of ad space on that. And we did have a little bit of online advertising as well. But that would give us maybe one or two clients a month. So it was just mostly our old clients referring cases back to us.
What is your marketing strategy?
Right now, there's almost no marketing strategy. It's whoever shows up, I'll take. Like I said, I know how to do almost all the different types of cases. I just have preferences. So right now, if they're coming in, I'll handle it.
Yeah.
And this is we've even done some complex litigation as well, which I was told that I really shouldn't be doing without like 5 other employees with me. But I try to get it as far as I can, then give it to a much larger firm to finish. Because I can get started, no problem. But I don't have the staff right now to do the complex things.
What are your future goals?
Future goals is get my staff back up.
Yeah.
And as soon as that's done, I can take more business. And we're doing that right now. So right at the moment, I'm up staffing. And I showed up here today to do a little bit of the advertising.
Yeah. And how big do you want your staff to be?
Actually, I just want about 5 to 10. that's manageable.
What could you advise young people, such as high schoolers, if they want to become a lawyer?
First, try volunteering or doing some type of like summer program at a law firm. You'll know exactly if you want to do it anymore. I had one guy who never had been in a law firm or did any legal work before. He went in and he was getting thrown things at by the partners. And so it can be pretty bad sometimes. And if you go into bigger firms, they're nicer, but they're usually willing to fire you at a moment's notice too. And this is just from all the people I've talked with after that. But find out if you like it first. If you don't want to spend years of study and find out this is the worst thing you ever wanted to do. And I have seen people have that happen. And some of the famous ones that had that happen were the owners of California Pizza Kitchen, who were all lawyers who didn't want to do it. I had a friend of mine who went back and worked in their family's candy factory because it was just completely not for them. And that was 3 years of law school, 4 years of undergraduate. So find out if you like it before you use up the 7 years.
Could you memorize a case that's meaning big to you?
I do remember some cases. And there's one of them that I worked as, it was actually a family law case. This is the one that I came in the middle, but they invalidated the law for prenuptials contracts. I didn't take it up to the California Supreme Court, but when they took it up there, and they actually said that if you do a prenuptial and something happens that is beyond what anyone could think of, you can get rid of the prenuptial agreement. And that one lasted for 10 years. At the end of it, the judge told me that this is the longest case they've ever had, and he was glad to see the last of me on that case. And the attorney on the other side retired as soon as the case was done. So that one I remember very well.
What are the main characteristics of a successful lawyer?
Someone that just can keep on working and do it steadily. And it's basically stamina, memory, and the desire just to get everything done.
Yeah, thank you. And what are your 3 tips of success?
Try it. Don't give up. And everything can be researched.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for coming to here. I learned a lot, and I'm sure our viewers did.
Thank you for having me.